We're going to start today. I want to say hi to everybody, and we're going to be fine art conversations for the future. And our group is Art as a Healing and Healing as an Art. So I'm going to introduce you, Jeanne. You're going to give us your full name.
Sure, Dr. Jeanne DeBrand.
Okay.
I am a metaphysical counselor.
And what else, Jeanne? You want to fill us in on your credentials?
A few other things.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay. And you?
Dellinger, astrological counselor.
Okay. And I'm Ellin Forbes. And we're going to dialogue a few fun things here today. We're going to start with Year of the Dragon.
Water dragon, yes?
Water dragon. Water dragon?
My sign?
What are you, by the way?
I'm actually the bull.
You're the bull? What?
Yeah,
do you know what element?
No.
Do you know what?
Metal rat.
Okay, well, we're the Year of the Metal Rat. That makes more sense with my personality because I'm not a shrinking violet, as we all know.
Yeah.
So what do you think is going to happen this year? I have very real understandings about what will happen in the year of the dragon, the water dragon. So how do you think this is going to segue through 2012?
Well, again, I think we're looking at a lot of karmic solutions coming into consciousness.
Oh, that's interesting.
I mean, the dragon's head, the dragon's tail, they're both being activated, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're looking at, the past and the future, the evolution and where we came from.
Yes.
Yeah.
How about, what are you expecting in the year of the
I think a lot of people are going to go really deep down into their emotions and look at things from a different perspective as to what's more important and what isn't. It's time for a change.
Okay. Well, also, what I think is that it's going to be a very buoyant year. I think it'll be a very creative year. Dragon is a very creative element philosophically within the Chinese calendar, and there'll be a lot of entertainment, a lot of good time. It's a little bit of a contradiction to 2012 being such a disastrous year, and I think it can kind of go either way, and that's basically how I began to think of retrograde Mars, because Mars goes retrograde, I think on the 23rd.
23rd of January, yeah.
And I think it stations out in June. Does anybody know the date?
May into June.
What date is it stationed, do you know?
I think it's about the middle of June.
About the middle of June? Yeah, I thought it was about the 21st or 23rd. Yes, it's on the solstice. That's correct.
It's going to be pretty interesting.
So let's say, do you feel that this would be a year that would spark all the artists, all the painters, all the filmmakers, people to come up with new ideas? But do you feel that this is a year where the people with the money and the wheels that have to turn, this would be a disastrous year for them? Because that's what they're calling for.
Pluto's in Capricorn. I mean, we know all the status quo is severely challenged. It is going to remain severely challenged for a period of time. But it will change. There's going to be layering. I think this is a more positive layer.
Yes, that's what I think so.
And I think a new vision is required.
If people place things in order now and set their organizational plans up now, they should come out ahead.
Yeah.
Basically, if they put the work to it, they should come out ahead.
Yeah, I think the tide is turning.
Yeah, I do too. I feel very optimistic. I don't think it's going down again. I think it's going up.
No, we bottomed out. I think from here
Last year we bottomed out.
Yeah.
Okay, so how does that work into the elements? How do you see the elements as being part of, the Chinese see it as elements more than they see it as signs as we see it. They have their various years when Buddha called the rat came first.
Sure. The elements are so pervasive. I mean, the elements are everywhere. I work with DNA and concepts of DNA based on the four elements, and we look at physics and the shapes that matter manifests, and again we come to that four elements. So I used to think it was important to try to match them up.
Earth, water, air,
fire, to try and match that up with which are we talking about, adenine, guanine? It doesn't matter now. I think it's just the basic idea that there is a symmetry. And that symmetry.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Changed my whole focus.
So it's a dance. It's a different dance.
Yeah, I love it.
It's a different way of looking at the way of the energy flows. How about you?
Well, I agree with Jeanne, because the planets are changing elements all the time. When you got a planet like the Mars, usually every 30 days, and Venus, you're changing elements 30 days apart. I mean, at this particular time, Mars chooses to retrograde, which it picks every 2 years, a sign to retrograde in for about 9 months, and this time they picked Virgo, which happens to be an Earth sign. So that's more.
Isn't it thinking of Virgo as an Earth sign? I mean, it is.
It is. It's an Earth sign.
It's so odd.
Well, I always found
it's mutable Earth.
Yeah, I always found the labeling of Virgo very difficult.
Okay.
because it doesn't feel like Earth, but I
No.
guess you harvest.
Because it's mutable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know, you have your fixed earth, you have your, and this is immutable. So there's a flexibility there, even though they can be very sticklers
Not
on
essential
things.
though as
No,
other Earths.
no, not essential. No,
sensuality
definitely
is
not.
not there. It's the Virgin with the
It's
lace.
yeah.
I actually see Virgo as a little differently.
Okay.
But that's just a theory, but that's okay. Quite a communicative gal.
Aquatic, communicative,
Communicative.
communicative.
Mercurial. She's a
Yes,
mercurial
Mercury
gal.
rules, right?
Okay, she's a
Mercury rules.
very.
The
she's-
logic comes
yeah.
into play.
Yeah,
The
and-
hardworking. The,
Right.
Pre-Latin view.
Yeah.
Right.
Pre-Latin view.
Yeah, pre-Latin. Very, very. Actually, you know who she is, don't you? She's the staff of wheat that's in the Syrian Bible. So, I think she's the staff of life. She's connected to the Earth Mother, and she's connected to
Like a series type thing.
yeah, she's connected to the first begettress. So we've got Mars going through the first begettress. So we've got Mars going through the initial, which is and it's going to mutate, right? And it's going to go back, pick up all the activity that we went into prior to this over the last 6 months. You think?
Yeah, actually, October.
October?
Last October. So how you handle a retrograde is it starts at 0 degrees. Now we're at approximately 22, 23.
Yeah.
Now it retrogrades, meaning it's not. They say going backwards
It's
to
an
understand,
oscillation,
but
right.
it's the
Just
motion
apparent
that's
motion.
yeah. But to explain to the layman, it's like going back.
Right.
So now it goes all the way back to, I believe, 3 degrees. So anything in your chart where it's hitting again, I like to look at it from a positive point of view, that you can redo or change the finality of that situation.
Well, you can revamp anything you think that needs to be revised.
Exactly.
Anything that needs to be revised comes up, and you can see down both. You can see sight line from both sides. You don't have to just move ahead.
Right. Well, not.
That's a very positive interpretation, a sight line from both sides. I like
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah, sight line. I was thinking about that because Mars, they don't have nice things to say about retrograde Mars,
No.
but this retrograde Mars, I think, is very positive. So this brings me back to healing. I think this will be a healing cycle. If we interpret
I think
astrology,
the opportunity for creative visualization can make it a healing cycle. You have to.
I would
Focus
agree.
on it.
Yeah, I would agree with that because the ruling the sixth, the Virgo, which rules the sixth house of everyday grind and work,
Right.
working very hard
so it
to
would,
get what you need to accomplish.
but it could also be very nurturing. It's feminine. It'll be nurturing and healing insofar as if you had a mental concept and you're a painter and you want to paint, wow, maybe you break out and get to where you want to be.
Absolutely, Neptune will
Okay.
go into Pisces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you'll have a Mars Pisces
Yeah.
opposition. So there could be a tremendous amount of activity that comes through
Absolutely true.
from a phone call, because it's
Yeah.
communication.
Yeah. Okay.
Or just communicating within yourself and letting the creativity come out and flow.
and coming out of that daily grind pattern can
Mhm.
be
Change, ho
transformation,
hum.
yeah.
This
So how do you see the planets? Do you see them as symbols and signs, or do you see them as bodily entities?
well, for me, they're a system of entities that's somewhere on a scale. I mean, there's the whole universe. There's the Milky Way. The planets are tiny players in terms of even the Milky Way. But then there's the biosphere, and then there's the microverse. And I mean, they're there, and they're a system, but there are so many systems.
So let's say that they're planets. They have solidity. They're solid. Okay.
They have metals,
And
it's- not all of them are solid. Some of them are more gaseous.
but they're not gaseous as empty. They're solid. I'm just
Okay,
gonna. Okay, so
I'll
let's
go
say
with you.
they're bodies that move.
Yes.
Okay, and we've assigned them mythological stature as far as being bodied entities.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they get to move around also, but they also move around within a very structured, mechanical, mathematical
Predictable, absolutely.
realm. Okay, so if you bring the fact that they're bodies and you bring them into their predictability and then you enter into another zone, let's say we go into the fact that everything is just about empty as in dark matter. Okay?
I love it. Love it. What are we predicting? Why are we able to do this?
Exactly.
If the universe is 5%, what we know of the universe is only 5%, and 95% is dark matter. How does it work? Why does it work?
Exactly. So
Good
what's
questions.
your theory on that?
The only thing I have to offer on it is something that I've just been reading, and that is the idea of the gong, the universal gong. Some of the heavyweights in physics who are investigating this kind of stuff are basically saying that the dark matter theory makes so much sense because if we think of the spiral, which is one of the 4 shapes that matters takes, so think of the Milky Way and that spiral.
And the spiral.
We've always known the outer
Gotcha.
parts of it are sort of warped, like an old vinyl LP
interesting.
record on the outer parts were warped. No theory, even Einstein could explain that.
That's interesting.
Dark matter explains it by saying that other galaxies, smaller on the edge, are exerting
that's interesting.
force there, but again, they were never big enough, so that theory was kind of discounted. Now we know that they are swirling through the dark matter, and when they do, it creates vibration. They found 3 vibrational
that's
patterns.
interesting.
The vibration of the dark matter
That's
pulls
interesting.
on the outer edges of the Milky Way, and supposedly one of the
interesting.
tones
That's interesting.
is 64 octaves below middle C.
So it's whom is talking to whom?
They are basically the hammer that's hitting
Right.
the Milky Way to
Right.
create this vibration.
Right.
There are others. There are 3 of them. There are 3 tones.
Right. But they are talking.
We've
Somebody's talking to somebody.
Somebody's
talking to somebody. When you said spiral, there is a physicist who did a study, and I don't recall his name. And since I'm not a scientist, maybe I don't have to.
That's right.
Okay? But the study is such where if you drip water out of a faucet and you register it, it is not a random pattern. It forms a spiral. And they studied snowflakes where they always thought this was a random pattern. No, it's a spiral pattern.
One of the
When
4
they-
major patterns, yeah.
So spirals make a great deal of sense to me. They're very cyclical.
Yes.
And what are the other 3? Do you know?
One is a bar, one is basically a zigzag, and I don't remember what the 4th one is.
So it's wavy lines.
Wavy lines.
Okay,
kind of
spirals.
Orion.
These are called phenomenal.
Yes.
These
And
are
yeah.
these are the phenomenal imagery, and this is where they've taken the algebra of physics and they've titled it phenomenal algebra.
And you said it's a mammalian brain, or all brains are capable of this?
Well, I don't know. They say from what I understand, I don't know if it separates at the animal level and we leave the reptilians out.
I don't think so. The
I
reptilian
don't think
brain's
so.
too powerful.
Yeah, I
Too
think
powerful.
I actually think each cell has its own like brain center. So I think everything is going to feel
They
the
call it
force.
the membrane. membrane. It's really the brain of the cell. It's where all the new research is going. All the Nobels are going to come out of that.
Oh, this is
Not
fascinating.
the nucleus anymore. The
So-
nucleus is old stuff.
These phenomenal imageries, these 4 basic symbols that they've begun to decipher through sound, which is the Avanya and the Avasa, right?
4 again. 4 again.
A 4. It's always the
Always the 4.
always the 4. So, well, you said it was 4 that they had identified, correct?
Yes.
Am I correct?
Yes.
And it's a sound, which is what Oppenheimer studied. It's what everybody studied in order to make the atomic bomb. It comes out of the Hindu Vedic material. Okay, sound.
Mm-hmm.
Sound and light.
Right, the basic Om, the sound that created,
Sound and light.
accompanied the creation.
So that means we get the chance to recreate the metaphor. So I'm going to ask you guys again, how do you see these entities, we've lent them a myth. We've given Mars is Mars, and it's passing through the sign, and it's in the sign of Virgo.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but we've lent them myths. So how do you think these myths will be affected as we move into these new stages, into the new 2012, things like that? How do you think, what will the metamorphosis be of the myth itself, given the open climate for dialoguing change? Basic structural change.
It's got to be all vibrational energy. It's vibrational. Everything has an energy, and it produces its own vibrations on a certain scale, so to speak. So it's like, it's back to music.
Yeah.
What we were discussing on the ride over here.
Yeah.
It's back to music. Well, you know, Jeanne was saying that she had to look for a formula to find out on this one. And sound. We may not be physically hearing it.
Correct.
You know, it's like dogs have their hearing. They hear other things that we don't.
Right.
So if you have all of this sound coming together, are they playing well together, or are they causing a lot of confusion?
It's their dissonance.
It's the...
And you know,
Exactly.
there's another thing that's come up recently for me too that I found really interesting. You know, in terms of nutrition, everybody's vitamin D, vitamin D. We've been hearing vitamin D for the last number of years, and how important it is for longevity, and it turns on the clock genes, and it prevents diabetes, and all these wonderful things.
That's interesting.
But we tend to think, okay, vitamin D comes from the sun, go out in the sun, get it on your skin, you manufacture
Right.
D, everything is good. And the reality is that photoreceptors are found deep in the bloodstream.
That's interesting.
Sunlight and humanity and growth and the whole biosphere, it isn't just about go out in the sun for 20 minutes and get your vitamin D. Cells require, at this point, our knowledge says that sun is required for the evolution of the cell, and that light needs to be delivered everywhere in the body in
That's
order to
interesting.
maintain the highest level of health. And look at what we're doing. We're living in houses under artificial light.
So we're redefining the basic premise of what we took to be fact.
Oh, yeah.
And we're doing it at every level, and then we're going to re-script. Do you think any of these scripts were known? That people have been communicating them? I do.
Are known?
I think they're well known,
I'm sure
yes.
there are cognoscenti out there who are aware of these things. I mean, they have to be.
Well, I think, you know, if you study yoga, it's bringing the light into your body
Sure,
at the end,
yeah,
right?
yeah. The lights. Any meditator.
I was going to say the same thing. Where they bring the white light down,
Yeah.
around, surround.
Bring the light in.
It's always
Yeah.
the light.
Yeah.
And
And
which
can
is,
you create it mentally and still do the same
Same
thing? I
thing.
mean, that's the question I couldn't answer.
well, that's like if you took all the light out of the universe, did the trees stop understanding that they're trees? And then when you turn it back on, do they reassemble as trees, or do they reassemble as something else? I think they remember their trees, and that would go back to the dark matter.
Yeah, and what the observer does, that the whole quantum idea of
Yeah.
how much.
Why don't you? The observer is the important one. I think the entity that's, well, who is the observer? The receiver of the light, or the light?
Exactly. That's.
So who do you
Interesting
think is
question.
the receiver?
I think it's an interplay. It's got to be. It's got to be both.
Oh, that's interesting. That's
Gotta
the
be
yin
both.
and the yang. What do
I
you
agree
think?
with him.
Yeah,
Since
I
you
agree. Yeah,
Can't separate the axis.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah, that's definitely. Yeah, light is not a straight line. They've found out.
Yes.
Right. That's very interesting. The
Yeah.
receiver. Oh, that's brilliant. So, what do you see? Where do you think? Like in our office, sometimes I've asked Joan, where do all the ideas go when they're done being ideas on the internet? I mean, they were never real things anyway,
Right.
but they're very real energies moving.
And their information.
And where does it go?
I think information is in that.
I
that
really
dark
want to
matter.
know.
I think it's part of
I
the dark
joked
matter.
I joke when we had this discussion. You'll appreciate this, into the computer Akashic records.
Yes. Okay. So there's a memory. There's a memory. Oh, that's very funny. That's very funny.
Yeah, I thought so.
And how do you think all the ideas are going to play out? So you think basically this is an optimistic Mercury retrograde,
Mars retrograde.
Mars retrograde.
And Saturn goes retrograde in soon.
Oh,
So we're going to have at least 3
Retrograde
planets
soon.
retrograde at the same time.
yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, well, that's that's okay. That's
It's I always look at things from a positive point of view. I like to know that
Interesting.
people have the option to use the energies, so you redo it. You want to get it right, you revamp it, you redo it, you look at it from a different angle, a different perspective.
that's coming from the Taurus.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it makes you...
you'll till that soil.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. I'm thinking that there's these 2 planets that are retrograding that are inside of the Saturn.
Yeah, the 2 of the
This
fast
is going to
movers.
have a
Yeah.
real hardcore nitty-gritty effect on how people begin to formulate these changes.
Yeah. And it is going to have
These are
an
not
effect
outer
on-
planets.
It's going to have an effect upon mechanicals
Yeah.
too. I mean, it has to. It's Mars and Mercury. There are going to be mechanical issues. I already see them.
Oh, that's interesting. In what way?
Just things are going to break. Things aren't going to work. Cars and equipment and machinery that we expect to work. Combine those two retrogrades with the solar flare energy, they're going to be just plain old practical mechanical issues.
Well, we used to own a printing plant, and anybody that owns a printing plant would say, everything breaks on a given day. Mars stations retrograde. So what's on the horizon for you ladies over the next short period of time as far as your creative urges or your astrological or your metaphysical bend? Do you have projects you'd like to do? Are there things you might like to get to?
Well, I write for 2 publications on Long Island,
Awesome.
monthly publications, so I spend a lot of time trying to research different material so it's not the same ho-hum. And you're reaching the masses. It's not like doing a private reading with one person where you're looking
Right.
at one chart and you're able to zero in. I have to look at from a whole perspective and be positive about it, because I really think that we need to be positive. And
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't, it beats the alternative, which is,
Yeah.
not a fun swamp to swim in,
no, I know.
And what's on your horizon?
My writing projects are in a different direction right now. I'm working with certain themes in nutrition and health, and
Oh, that's interesting, though.
trying to take people a little bit of a different direction, out on an angle, and seeing if the
Oh, that's
support comes with me
interesting.
or not.
That's interesting. Well, I'm just trying to whip up conversation. I'm
Doing a
talking.
good job.
I'm talking about the verboten. Those things that people actually they're not. Most of these ideas you've been speaking of have been written about for thousands of years, and if you read the philosophical texts or the historical texts, whatever you want to call these texts, they're pretty well dialogued, because astrology didn't separate from science until Newton.
Yeah, until one of the popes had a girlfriend, right, and got her pregnant, and one of the astrologer made the
Oh, that's
prediction
very
that she
funny.
won't be happy, whatever was going to be, and the pope banned astrology. That was my understanding, that it was university level science. And once that
Oh, I
happened,
didn't know the Pope had.
I don't know which pope.
I don't know. I felt it was when I thought it was when Newton
Probably-
dropped the ball, and they
probably
really began to dialogue physics, and they separated out the two sciences.
And, you know,
they
that-
felt there was a conflict.
And Newtonian physics is so basic. I mean, it doesn't encompass very much at all. It's really sad. But it's probably the same era.
Well, I'm very happy that you are using the word science when you say separating at the time in Newton, because a lot of people don't understand that astrology is based on mathematical calculations.
Oh yeah.
I mean, people today go on the net and they just put it in there, but when Jeanne and I were learning it, we had to take that ephemeris
work
and
it.
we had to do all of the math for the moon, for everything.
Right, all
and,
the
and
corrections.
all the corrections, exactly, and chart them
Delineate
out and
everything,
delineate and angle it. So we really have a whole different perspective and
Sure.
appreciation for it.
So anything you want to leave people with?
Hang on.
Hang on. Okay. How about you?
Be positive. Change sometimes can be positive.
Oh, I think this is a great time to reconfigure
Figure.
and rethink, but pick up the meaningful cornerstones of how to evolve. Well,
And the world isn't ending, right? We want to make that final point. The world is
Oh
not ending.
no, the world is not.
Because
No,
the
it's
mind
not.
calendar is ending. Come on.
No, come on.
No. Actually, it ends to begin anew, and some cultures thought it was ending in 206.
Yeah.
It might
Or
be
the
the
millennium
end
or
of the
whatever.
way we perceive things now.
Right.
That's the way I would categorize
It's
it.
a new era.
It's a new era. Yeah.
So if somebody wants to reach you, do you have a .com?
DrJeanneDeBrant.com. DRJE.
And they can get you. They'll find an address there, like info or Dr. Jeanne at.
That's a website.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they have to have an email address.
Dr. Jeanne at optonline.net.
Okay.
CelestialRealm@juno.com.
Okay. And to get a hold of us at fineartmagazine.com, info@fineartmagazine.com. I want to thank anybody who watched, anybody who listened. Have a great day. Thank you.